Ancient builders moved stones heavier than elephants with a precision that rivals modern engineering. This is the reality of megalithic structures, a global puzzle that has baffled experts for generations. By the end of this, you will possess a new framework for understanding one of humanity's greatest forgotten sciences. We will uncover how cultures separated by oceans achieved near impossible engineering feats, and we will explore why this profound knowledge seemingly vanished from history. What does our modern world truly understand about the ambition of our ancestors? These silent stone giants speak a universal language of ambition. From the windswept plains of Salisbury to the high Andes, our ancestors were gripped by a common obsession, moving mountains of rock with a purpose we can still feel but struggle to name. This was a global architectural revolution, a sudden and inexplicable leap in what humanity believed was possible to build. The word megalith itself, from the ancient Greek for large stone, only hints at the sheer scale of their vision. These are not random piles of rock. They are meticulously planned constructions, employing blocks that often weigh more than a herd of elephants. Consider the sprawling alignments at Karnak in France, where thousands of standing stones march across the landscape like a petrified army. Or gaze upon the stoic Moai of Easter Island, their island backs turned to the vast Pacific. Then there is Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a temple complex so ancient it rewrites the very timeline of civilization, built with finely worked pillars before the invention of writing or the wheel. Archaeologists like Colin Renfrew have long noted that these sites are often precisely aligned with the sun, the moon, and the stars. This is not coincidence. It is evidence of a sophisticated astronomical understanding, a science carved in stone. So we are left with a haunting question. How did cultures separated by continents and oceans with no apparent contact arrive at such similar and sophisticated solutions? The parallel development of these ideas suggests something profound, a shared foundation of knowledge that has since slipped through the cracks of history. This global phenomenon forces us to look closer, to move beyond mere wonder and ask the practical question that echoes across the ages. If they could move these mountains, what kind of tools did they truly wield? That shared obsession to build with stone began with a single, critical choice at the quarry face. Before any block could be moved or set in alignment, the ancient builders had to decide which stone was worthy of their monument. The first principle in reconstructing their lost science is not about levers or ropes, but about the very earth beneath their feet. They possessed a masterful understanding of geology, knowing precisely why one type of rock was chosen over another. Granite was selected for its immense strength and resistance to the elements, basalt for its fine grain and toughness, and limestone for its relative workability. The Great Pyramids of Egypt, for example, were primarily built from limestone, a stone soft enough to be cut with the copper tools available at the time, yet one that hardens beautifully after exposure to air, gaining strength over centuries. But their knowledge went far beyond simply picking a durable rock. Geologists studying ancient quarries have found clear evidence that these builders were expert readers of the natural landscape. They would carefully scrutinize bedrock, searching for pre-existing natural fractures and weaknesses. Instead of fighting the stone, they worked with it, using these natural partings to their immense advantage. By driving wooden wedges into these cracks and soaking them with water to make the wood expand, they could coax a perfectly shaped block from the earth with a fraction of the effort it would take to cut one from solid, unbroken rock. This was not random extraction. It was a selective process that involved testing a stone's hardness, examining the size of its crystalline grains, and judging its long-term resistance to weathering and erosion. What subtle geological clues were they following that we, with all our technology, might completely overlook today? This deep environmental wisdom, this ability to listen to the mountain itself, was the essential first step. It transformed an impossible task into a manageable one, paving the way for the next great challenge, the moment of extraction when the stone was finally freed from its cradle. The silence of the quarry was broken by the sound of controlled fracture. With the perfect stone selected, the ancient builders faced the monumental task of freeing it from the earth, a process demanding a deep, almost intimate understanding of material physics. They mastered the art of thermal shock, a brilliantly simple method. Workers would build large fires directly against the rock face, heating the stone for hours until it was searing hot. Then they would douse it with water, causing the outer layer to contract rapidly while the inner stone remained expanded. This extreme temperature difference created a web of microfractures, effectively weakening the rock and making it possible to break off large, manageable slabs with nothing more than stone hammers. This technique turned an unyielding granite mountain into a workable material. Alongside fire, they employed water in another clever way. At sites like the Aswan quarries in Egypt, we can still see the precise channels they carved around the perimeter of a chosen block. Into these narrow grooves, they hammered dry wooden wedges. Then they poured water over the wood. As the wedges absorbed the moisture, they swelled with immense, irresistible force, cleanly splitting the stone along its natural grain. This was not brute force. It was a patient application of natural principles, a collaboration with the very properties of the materials at hand. For the hardest stones like granite, a different, more grueling approach was needed. Archaeologists have found vast quantities of dolerite pounding stones at ancient quarries. These are round, fist-sized balls of an even harder rock. Workers would simply stand for days, perhaps weeks, rhythmically pounding the same spot on a granite surface. They would gradually wear a groove deep enough to isolate a block, a testament to sheer persistence. Experimental archaeology has proven this works. Small, dedicated teams using these primitive methods can indeed quarry stones that weigh many tons, proving that time and consistent effort were their most abundant resources. The evidence at places like Baalbek in Lebanon is particularly telling. There we find the famous stone of the pregnant woman, a single block weighing an estimated 1,000 tons, still lying in its quarry. Trenches were meticulously dug around it, not just for extraction, but to create space for workers to insert levers and begin the next impossible task. How did they achieve such clean lines and precise angles without modern power tools? The answer lies in a lost blend of physics and profound patience. Each method, from fire to water to relentless pounding, was a step in a carefully choreographed dance. The block was now free, but it was still a mountain in repose. The true test of their genius was just beginning, the moment they had to convince that mountain to move. A stone separated from the quarry is a mountain that must learn to walk. This was the next great act of ancient engineering, the art of megalithic transportation. Visualize a team of workers hauling a multi-ton slab across miles of rugged terrain, their tools limited to logs, ropes, and raw human ingenuity. How did they move what we could not lift without cranes? One of the most enduring theories involves the simple sledge. Archaeologists propose that massive blocks were loaded onto wooden sledges and pulled along tracks. But the true secret was not in the pulling, it was in the path. These tracks were often lubricated with water, mud, or even animal fat, creating a slick surface that dramatically reduced friction. Experiments have shown that a small team can move astonishingly heavy weights this way, sliding a stone as easily as a sled on snow. Another method, familiar to many, is the use of rolling logs. A team would place a series of logs beneath the sledge, creating a temporary road. As the sledge moved forward, workers at the back would constantly pick up the rear logs and run them to the front, creating an endless, rolling pathway. This was a system of coordinated motion, a human-powered conveyor belt designed for the heaviest cargo on Earth. But some cultures developed methods even more creative. On Easter Island, oral traditions and modern experiments both suggest the iconic Moai statues were not dragged, but walked. Teams used ropes to rock the colossal figures from side to side, edging them forward with a rhythmic, swaying gait. Each small tilt, each controlled rock, brought the stone giant another step closer to its eternal vigil. For longer distances, water was the ultimate highway. The massive blue stones of Stonehenge, for instance, are thought to have traveled a complex route from their Welsh quarries. They were likely loaded onto barges or lashed to the sides of log boats, riding river currents for much of their long journey before being transferred to rollers for the final overland trek. This reveals a staggering level of logistical planning. How did they coordinate the labor, manage the supplies, and navigate the route without a single written instruction? The answer lies in a deep, communal understanding of basic physics and a shared, unwavering purpose. They mastered the simple machines of lever, roller, and incline, turning impossible weight into manageable force. The stone had arrived, but its journey was not over. The final and most delicate act awaited, the moment of precise placement that would transform a mere rock into a sacred pillar of the sky. The stone's journey ended at the workshop, where raw rock was transformed into architectural art. Here, the fourth principle of their lost science comes into sharp focus, the mastery of precision cutting and joinery. Imagine a space echoing with the rhythmic tap of stone hammers and the hiss of abrasive sand, where craftsmen shaped multi-ton blocks to interlock as seamlessly as pieces in a giant, three-dimensional puzzle. The result of their labor is an engineering marvel that still defies easy explanation, joints so perfectly fitted that you cannot slide a razor blade between them. To achieve this, they employed a toolkit of brilliant simplicity. For cutting hard stone, they used the power of abrasion. A simple copper saw, pulled back and forth with patient rhythm, became a powerful tool when fed with a wet slurry of quartz sand. The hard sand particles did the actual cutting, grinding through granite over days or weeks with relentless, granular precision. For drilling holes, they used hollow tubes of copper, again with abrasive slurry. As they spun the tube, perhaps with a bow, it would grind a circular groove into the stone, eventually leaving a perfect core that could be snapped out. This method left telltale spiral grooves on the cores and inside the holes, evidence we can still find today. But the ultimate expression of this skill is found in the polygonal masonry of the Inca in Peru. Here, builders worked with irregular, multifaceted blocks, each one unique. The process was one of iterative fitting. A stone was roughly shaped, then offered up to its neighbor. The high spots were marked and painstakingly pounded away with stone hammers. Then the block was tried again. This slow, deliberate dance of test and trim continued until the two stones locked together under their own weight, needing no mortar. This was not random piling. It was a deep, intuitive understanding of geometry and stress distribution, ensuring that the weight of the entire wall was channeled perfectly through each interlocking face. How did they achieve such accuracy without blueprints or modern measuring tapes? They likely used simple, effective guides, like finely knotted cords for checking alignment or wooden templates to transfer complex shapes. The true blueprint existed in the collective mind of the master builders, a living geometry passed down through generations of practice. This joinery provided immense structural integrity, allowing walls to withstand earthquakes by shifting and settling without collapsing. But it also created an undeniable aesthetic harmony, a visual poetry in stone that feels both impossibly ancient and eternally modern. The very existence of these perfect joints forces a new question. If they could shape stone with such breathtaking accuracy, what other, even more subtle, tools might they have used to guide their hands? The true power of their craft was not in the tool itself, but in the hand that wielded it. A master builder's toolkit was a study in elegant simplicity, each object perfectly suited to its singular purpose. Heavy stone mauls, essentially rounded river rocks, served as the primary hammers for rough shaping and quarrying. For finer work, there were chisels made from hardened copper or bronze, metals strong enough to fracture limestone and sandstone along precise lines when struck with force. But for the hardest stones like granite and basalt, they employed a more cunning strategy, using the stones themselves against each other. They used abrasives, most commonly quartz sand, which is harder than granite. By mixing this sand with water to create a gritty slurry and dragging a simple copper saw back and forth through it, they could slowly, relentlessly, grind through the most obstinate rock. The sand did the cutting, while the copper tool merely served as a carrier for the true abrasive agent. This principle of patient abrasion was also the key to their stunning finishes. They would polish surfaces for days or even weeks with progressively finer sands, achieving a mirror-like sheen that still catches the light after thousands of years. Across the ocean, Mesoamerican builders used razor-sharp obsidian blades for intricate detailing and carving, while in Europe, picks made from the sturdy antlers of red deer proved perfect for excavating soft chalk and limestone. The proof is etched into the stones themselves. Archaeologists have meticulously matched the distinctive marks left on ancient blocks, the telltale grooves and pitting, to experiments using these exact replica tools. But their precision required more than just cutting implements. To achieve the perfect alignments we marvel at, they almost certainly used basic surveying instruments. A simple plumb bob, a weighted string, would have given them a true vertical line. A water level, which is nothing more than a trough of water, would have provided a perfectly horizontal reference across any distance, allowing them to set foundations and lintels with breathtaking accuracy. While direct evidence of these tools is rare, as they were made of perishable wood, their conceptual necessity is undeniable. Reconstructions by modern craftsmen have demonstrated that with these simple tools, a team of skilled and patient workers can achieve results that rival modern machinery. How did a copper chisel, a tool we would consider soft and ineffective, manage to shape a civilization? The answer lies not in the metal, but in the accumulated knowledge of the artisan, a deep, generational understanding of stone's behavior under repeated, focused impact. This profound reliance on skill over complex technology points towards something even more fundamental guiding their hands, a hidden language of numbers and geometry that dictated every cut and every angle. Their geometrical precision hints at a deeper intellectual world, one traced not on paper but in the earth itself. These builders were master geometers, their minds fluent in a language of angles, ratios, and celestial cycles. The sixth principle of their lost science is a profound mathematical intuition, a way of seeing the world through an invisible grid of harmony and proportion. We can see this legacy etched into the very foundations of their monuments. At Stonehenge, the arrangement of the sarsen stones forms a perfect rectangle. The ratio of its sides is a precise 5:12:13. This is a Pythagorean triple, a set of three whole numbers that perfectly satisfy the famous theorem for a right-angled triangle, a concept formerly credited to a Greek philosopher who would not be born for over 1,000 years. This cannot be a coincidence. It reveals a working knowledge of advanced geometrical relationships, likely discovered and perfected through generations of practical construction. Similar mathematical elegance appears across the globe. The Great Pyramid of Giza is famously oriented to the cardinal points with an error of less than 1/15 of a degree, a feat that demands an extraordinary understanding of geometry and astronomy. Its base perimeter divided by its height gives a value remarkably close to 2 times pi, suggesting an intuitive grasp of this fundamental constant. How did they achieve such accuracy with such rudimentary tools? The answer lies in a toolkit of breathtaking simplicity, ropes and stakes. A long, carefully measured cord, perhaps knotted at specific intervals, became a giant compass and a measuring tape. By anchoring a stake and sweeping a rope in an arc, they could lay out perfect circles. By stretching ropes in specific triangular configurations, like the classic 3-4-5 triangle, they could establish perfect right angles for their foundations. This was hands-on mathematics, a physical dance with lines and curves that translated abstract principles into monumental reality. This knowledge was a living tradition, passed from master to apprentice through demonstration and oral instruction, a secret craft that required no written formulas. The very act of building was the lesson. This geometrical foundation was far more than a structural necessity. It was a sacred language, a way to encode their understanding of the universe into the bones of the earth. The perfect circles and precise angles were not just for stability, they were a bridge to the heavens, a deliberate mirror of the cosmic order they observed spinning overhead. The stones themselves were a compass, their silent geometry pointing toward the heavens. Gaze up at the stars from the center of a stone circle, and you witness the seventh principle of this lost science, a profound connection to the celestial dance. The careful alignment of these monuments with the sun, moon, and stars reveals a sophisticated understanding of cosmic cycles, turning static rock into dynamic astronomical instruments. At Newgrange in Ireland, a massive 5,000-year-old tomb is crowned with a special roof box, a slit carefully positioned above the entrance. For just a few minutes at dawn on the winter solstice, a narrow beam of sunlight pierces this opening, traveling down a long passageway to illuminate the inner burial chamber. This was not an accident. It was a meticulously engineered event, a moment of triumph when the sun itself was invited into the house of the dead. Far to the south, in the Egyptian desert, the stones of Nabta Playa stand as a testament to even older ambitions. This site, older than Stonehenge, features megaliths arranged to mirror the stars of Orion's belt, a celestial map drawn on the desert floor. How did they achieve such precise alignments without telescopes or written charts? The methods were elegant in their simplicity. A single upright pole, called a gnomon, would cast a shadow. By tracking the path of that shadow's tip throughout the day and across the seasons, ancient observers could map the sun's journey, identifying the solstices and equinoxes with remarkable accuracy. Lines of sight between carefully placed stones would frame the rising of a specific star or the northernmost point of the moon. This was science built on patience, requiring generations of dedicated observation. They likely kept these long-term records using notches on animal bones, carved stone circles, or other perishable calendars, preserving a growing body of knowledge about time itself. Why did cultures across the globe invest such immense effort to marry their greatest structures with the sky? These alignments suggest the megaliths served a dual purpose. They were practical calendars marking the seasons for planting and harvest, but they were also profound ceremonial spaces. They physically bridged the human world with the cosmos, creating a stage where the cycles of life, death, and rebirth were mirrored in the endless turning of the stars. The stones were not just observing the heavens, they were conversing with them, anchoring the sacred rhythms of the universe into the very bedrock of the earth. This deep cultural impulse to connect with the cosmos leads us to a final, haunting mystery. If these sites were so central to their world, what powerful beliefs ultimately led to the abandonment of this magnificent science? The stones themselves could sing. Step inside a sealed megalithic chamber, and the silence is an illusion. A whisper spoken at one end can be heard with startling clarity at the other, not as a faint echo but as a distinct, amplified voice. This is the eighth principle of their lost science, a mastery of sonic engineering that turned stone into a resonant instrument. Recent acoustic studies have mapped the soundscapes of ancient sites, revealing properties that cannot be accidental. At the hypogeum of Hal Saflieni in Malta, an underground labyrinth carved over 5,000 years ago, certain small niches are engineered to resonate at a specific low frequency, close to 110 Hz. This is not a random number. Scientific research suggests this frequency can directly impact human brain activity, potentially altering states of consciousness and creating feelings of focused calm or heightened awareness. The builders were not merely stacking rocks, they were tuning chambers like the body of a giant violin, using architecture to conduct vibrations that could shape the human mind. How did they discover this? The answer may lie in the very process of construction. Master builders likely learned to listen to the stones they worked. Tapping a rock with a hammer would produce a distinct tone, a clear indicator of its internal integrity and quality. A solid, crack-free block would ring with a clear, bell-like note, while a flawed one would sound dull and dead. This simple quality control test, repeated over generations, could have revealed a deeper truth that certain stones, under the right conditions, could produce and carry sound in extraordinary ways. Some cultures took this a step further, creating lithophones or rock gongs. These are carefully chosen stones that produce specific musical tones when struck. Arrangements of these ringing rocks have been found across the world, from the jungles of India to the plains of Africa, proving our ancestors viewed stone not just as a building material, but as a source of music and ritual power. This acoustic design implies a working knowledge of wave physics. They understood how sound waves reflect, focus, and amplify within hard, smooth surfaces. They might have even tapped into the piezoelectric effect, a phenomenon where certain crystals, like quartz found within granite, generate a small electrical charge when under pressure from sound vibrations. This integration of sound adds a profound layer of complexity to our understanding of these sites. They were not silent, solemn temples. They were dynamic, multi-sensory environments where architecture, astronomy, and acoustics fused into a single experience. The very stones seemed to breathe with a hidden energy, an energy that their builders understood was intimately connected to another elemental force, the presence of flowing water. Water was the silent partner in their grand architectural schemes. This ninth principle reveals a sophisticated grasp of hydraulic engineering, where rivers and rain were harnessed as practical tools. Ancient builders understood that controlling water meant controlling weight and friction, turning a formidable enemy into a powerful ally. The most direct application was in transportation. The massive Moai of Easter Island, according to compelling theories, may have been moved along roads deliberately prepared as slick, water-lubricated pathways. By wetting the soil, workers could dramatically reduce the drag, allowing the statues to be rocked and walked forward with far less effort. This was not just about brute strength, it was about smart physics. Water also provided the ultimate level. For laying the vast, perfectly flat foundations of temples and pyramids, builders could dig a simple network of interconnected trenches around the site and fill them with water. The surface of the water is always level. By measuring down from this consistent plane at various points, they could ensure every foundation stone was set to the exact same height, achieving an accuracy that still astounds surveyors today. This hydraulic knowledge even extended to understanding long-term environmental shifts. The enigmatic terraced structures off the coast of Yonaguni, Japan, whether natural or partly shaped by human hands, stand as a stark reminder that ancient builders worked with a coastline that was constantly changing. Their choice to build in such locations suggests a deep awareness of sea levels, tides, and erosion, factoring the power of water into their long-term plans. This mastery moves beyond pure mechanics. Water was not merely a tool, it was a sacred element, a life force, and a cleanser. The presence of wells, canals, and intricate drainage systems at megalithic sites like Mohenjo-Daro points to a worldview where practical management and spiritual significance were seamlessly intertwined. Controlling water was a form of cosmic order, a way to channel the elemental powers of the earth itself. Their ability to command this fluid force for both practical and symbolic purposes demonstrates a final, unifying characteristic of their genius, a holistic vision where every cut in the stone, every alignment to a star, and every diverted stream was part of a single, coherent language of meaning. A carved spiral on a weathered stone is more than an ancient decoration. It is a silent sermon on the cycle of life and death, a cosmological map rendered in rock. This brings us to the 10th and perhaps most profound principle of the megalithic world, the deep layer of symbolism and cosmological significance that gave these structures their true purpose. The engineering was astonishing, but the carvings reveal the soul behind the science. Across continents, we find a shared visual language of spirals, concentric circles, zigzags, and animal motifs. At the Gavrinis tomb in France, the interior is a canvas of intricate patterns. These are not random scratches. Researchers have found that specific carvings are illuminated by the rays of the sun only during the solstice dawn, transforming the tomb into a seasonal clock where light and shadow perform a ritual as old as time itself. The spiral might represent the sun's journey, the labyrinth the path to the underworld, or the concentric circles the ripples of creation. These symbols were a powerful form of encoded knowledge, a way to pass down an understanding of the universe, the seasons, and the core values of their society without a single written word. Why choose to express these eternal ideas through such massive, permanent monuments? The answer lies in the very nature of stone. A wooden hut decays, a story told aloud fades, but a symbol carved into a megalith endures for millennia. It was a deliberate act to anchor their worldview into the landscape, to make their beliefs as solid and unshakable as the earth itself. This symbolic layer adds immense emotional depth to the engineering feats. It tells us that the people who moved these mountains of rock were not just brilliant engineers, they were philosophers and poets. They saw no separation between the scientific act of aligning a stone to a star and the spiritual act of honoring a cosmic cycle. The megalith was a holistic project, a perfect fusion of science and spirit, a machine for living, dying, and understanding the cosmos. This profound integration of meaning and material raises a final, humbling question about the very nature of their ambition. What kind of society could sustain such a monumental vision across generations? The ambition to build in stone required a society built on shared purpose. Moving a mountain is not just an engineering problem, it is a social one. The 11th principle of this lost science reveals a world of sophisticated labor organization and social structures, where entire communities united around a vision that would outlive every single one of them. Envision the scene at a site like Göbekli Tepe or the Salisbury Plain, not as a silent construction site, but as a vibrant, temporary city. The air would be thick with the smell of cooking fires and the sound of coordinated activity. This was not a disorganized mob. It was a society in miniature with clearly defined roles for expert quarry workers, skilled transporters who understood the physics of leverage, master designers who held the sacred geometry in their minds, and ritual specialists who ensured the celestial alignments were perfect and the gods were pleased. Evidence from ancient settlements like Çatalhöyük in Turkey, with its dense, interconnected dwellings and shared spaces, suggests these monumental projects were a powerful glue that bound people together, forging a powerful shared identity that was literally set in stone. How did they coordinate hundreds of workers across years or even decades without a single written memo or a modern project manager? The rhythm of their labor was likely tied to the land itself. Construction would have been a seasonal activity, scheduled during the lulls in the agricultural calendar when the community was freed from the immediate demands of planting and harvest. These were not periods of forced toil, but likely times of collective celebration. Leaders would have motivated workers with grand feasts, where food and drink were shared generously, turning back-breaking labor into a communal ritual, a shared endeavor that strengthened social bonds. This level of coordination implies a social structure capable of remarkable long-term planning, whether it was a hierarchical system with a charismatic leader or a more communal council of elders making decisions for the good of all. They were investing not in a quick shelter, but in a permanent landmark for their descendants. The very scale of the stones they chose to move speaks to a powerful desire for legacy, a declaration that their community, their beliefs, and their understanding of the world mattered. This profound social machinery, this ability to harness human potential across generations, forces a final, poignant question. If they could organize so effectively to build for eternity, what ultimately caused the threads of this magnificent knowledge to unravel and fade from memory? The master's hands guided the apprentices, their movements a quiet dialogue of force and finesse. This was the living classroom of the megalithic world, where the 12th principle of their lost science thrived, a robust system of knowledge transmission built entirely on apprenticeship. In a world without written manuals, the only way to learn how to move a mountain was to stand beside the person who had done it before. Skills were not taught through lectures but absorbed through imitation and relentless repetition. A young learner would first be tasked with holding a rope, then with striking a stone maul in the exact same spot for hours, his muscles memorizing the rhythm long before his mind understood the theory. This hands-on education ensured that the precise techniques for cutting joinery, aligning with the stars, and designing for stability were passed down with incredible fidelity, generation after generation. We can still see their classrooms today in the quarries and workshops, unfinished blocks and practice stones covered in hesitant chisel marks or abandoned partway through a complex cut are the ancient equivalent of a student's workbook. They reveal a process of trial and error, of a learner's hand gradually steadying under the watchful eye of a master. This knowledge was further cemented through the power of story and song. The epic tale of a legendary founder who first moved the great stone might secretly encode the correct sequence for setting up a lever system. A rhythmic work chant could perfectly time the coordinated pull of a transport team, while a ritual performed at the solstice reinforced the astronomical alignments in a way no one could forget. This system was brilliantly adapted to an oral culture, making complex engineering both memorable and sacred. So why did such an effective method eventually fail, allowing this vast knowledge to slip away? The system's greatest strength was also its fatal flaw. It required an unbroken chain of practice. A single generation disrupted by war, famine, or disease could sever the link forever. The master dies before passing on the final secret, the song is forgotten, and the specific meaning behind a ritual gesture is lost, leaving behind only the silent stones. This fragility highlights a profound truth. Their science was a living tradition, not a static archive, and it could only survive as long as there were hands to practice it. As we look closer, we see how this transmission was never a monolithic process, but was beautifully shaped by the local environment itself, adapting to the unique stones and landscapes of every region. The stones of Malta speak a different architectural language than those of Peru. Travel from the sun-baked deserts of Egypt to the misty highlands of the Andes, and the universal ambition to build with stone reveals itself in wonderfully distinct dialects. This 13th principle is one of brilliant adaptation, where local materials, climates, and cultural priorities shaped unique solutions to a shared global challenge. In the green landscapes of Europe, builders frequently relied on the post and lintel system, raising massive uprights and capping them with horizontal stones to create frameworks like the trilithons of Stonehenge. This method created open, ceremonial spaces suited to the rolling plains. Meanwhile, high in the Andes, Incan engineers confronted a different reality, one of violent earthquakes. Their response was to perfect the mortarless polygonal wall. Each irregular, multifaceted block was painstakingly shaped to interlock with its neighbors in a sprawling stone jigsaw puzzle. When the ground shook, these walls would shift and settle, then lock back into place, a dynamic system that has withstood centuries of seismic activity. On the Mediterranean island of Malta, a different innovation took shape. The builders of the Haga Kim and Najdra temples developed the corbelled roof. They would lay successive courses of stone, each one projecting slightly inward over the one below, gradually narrowing the space until the walls met at the top, forming a stable, domed ceiling without any supporting arches. These regional styles were not accidents of history. They were direct responses to the available resources. Where granite was abundant, you find massive, densely packed walls. Where limestone was the only option, you see more intricate carving and sculptural forms. The climate played a role too, with overhanging lintels in rainy regions to shed water, and tightly fitted joints in earthquake zones to distribute force. By comparing these methods side by side, we can start to separate the universal principles from the localized innovations. The use of levers, the understanding of center of gravity, and the geometric precision are the universal threads. The specific expression of those principles, whether as a corbelled dome or a polygonal wall, is the local genius. What does this incredible diversity teach us about human creativity? It shows that the lost science was never a single, rigid dogma passed from a master to a disciple. It was a flexible and adaptable set of practices, a toolkit of ideas that could be reconfigured to meet the demands of any mountain, any quarry, any community's vision. The true master was not a person, but the landscape itself, and every culture learned to listen to its unique voice. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as a monumental convergence of every principle we have explored. Its four sides align with the cardinal directions with an error so tiny it defies belief, a feat of astronomical and geometrical precision that would challenge modern engineers. This was not a rough pile of rock. It was a machine built from millions of limestone and granite blocks, each one cut and placed with a purpose that transcended mere construction. The sheer scale of the project demanded a social organization of breathtaking complexity. A workforce numbering in the tens of thousands would have been a temporary city thriving on the Giza plateau, with roles divided between expert quarrymen, transport crews, skilled masons, and celestial observers, all synchronized in a decades-long dance of coordinated labor. The recent discovery of a ceremonial ramp system at the Hatnub Quarry provides a stunningly clear snapshot of their methods. This ramp, flanked by staircases and post holes, was designed for teams to haul massive stone blocks on sledges, likely using water to lubricate the path and reduce friction to a manageable level. It is a perfect case study in the application of simple physics to an impossible task, yet the pyramid's secrets are not confined to their external form. Their internal chambers may have been engineered for sound as much as for space. The resonant properties of the granite coffer in the king's chamber, for instance, suggest the builders understood how architecture could shape acoustic experience, perhaps to amplify ritual chants or to create a specific sensory atmosphere. Above all, the structure's silent dialogue with the cosmos endures. The alignment of the pyramids with the stars of Orion's belt is a theory that continues to ignite debate, pointing to a deep desire to anchor the pharaoh's journey to the eternal patterns of the night sky. What profound truths are still locked within those towering layers of stone? The pyramids represent a peak of integrated knowledge, but they are not the end of the story. To understand how this science truly worked, we must turn to the less famous, often stranger sites, where the rules were bent and the methods were adapted to even more impossible terrain. Stonehenge stands as a silent question on the Salisbury Plain. Its great Sarsen circle captures the sunrise on the summer solstice with a precision that speaks of generations spent watching the sky. The heel stone, positioned outside the main circle, acts as a perfect foresight, marking the point where the sun crests the horizon on the longest day of the year. But their astronomical ambition may have reached beyond the sun to track the more complex 18.6-year cycle of the moon. This was not a simple calendar. It was a sophisticated machine for predicting celestial events, built with an intuition for geometry that still feels advanced. The mystery deepens with the smaller blue stones, transported from the Preseli Hills in Wales, a journey of over 150 miles. Their presence hints at a vast network of trade or even pilgrimage, a cultural connection that spanned the breadth of ancient Britain. Were these stones chosen for more than their color? Some geologists suggest they were prized for their perceived acoustic properties or even their supposed healing qualities, turning the monument into a destination for both the body and the soul. How did they actually build it? The evidence points to a blend of brute force and brilliant physics. The massive sarsens were pounded into shape using stone mauls, their surfaces still bearing the marks of this relentless work. To raise them, builders likely dug deep pits, sliding the giant stones in and then painstakingly hauling them upright using ropes, levers, and perhaps timber of frames as counterweights. The final act, placing the heavy lintels on top, might have involved building great earthen ramps or using a complex system of wooden cribbing to lift them inch by agonizing inch. Modern experiments have proven that a dedicated group of people, using only Neolithic technology, could indeed move and raise these colossal stones. This practical evidence demystifies the process, revealing it as a triumph of coordinated human effort rather than magic. Yet the true purpose of Stonehenge remains wonderfully ambiguous. Was it a temple for the sun, a lunar observatory, a center of healing drawing on the power of the bluestones, or a unified ceremonial space for the dead? The answer is likely all of the above. Its function evolved over centuries as new generations added their own layers of meaning and structure to the site. This very complexity is a vital lesson. Megalithic science was not a static set of rules, but a living, changing tradition that adapted to new ideas and beliefs. It pushes us to look further back to the very origins of this global impulse to build in stone. Göbekli Tepe rises from a Turkish hilltop like a question carved in limestone. This site, built around 9600 BC, is staggeringly old. Its great T-shaped pillars were raised by hunter-gatherers, a people we once assumed were incapable of such grand projects. They erected these stones a full 6,000 years before Stonehenge and 5,000 years before the first pyramids of Egypt. This single fact shatters the traditional narrative of civilization, which holds that agriculture came first, providing the surplus food and settled communities that made monumental architecture possible. Here, the architecture seems to have come first. The builders of Göbekli Tepe were not farmers tied to their fields. They were mobile bands of foragers, yet they somehow organized themselves to quarry, transport, and raise pillars weighing up to 20 tons. How did they achieve this without a centralized authority or a permanent, settled population? The answer must lie in a powerful, shared belief system, a common mythology so compelling it could bring scattered groups together for a collective purpose that spanned generations. The pillars themselves are a gallery of a lost world. They are not plain monoliths. They are covered in exquisite, high-relief carvings of animals, foxes, scorpions, lions, and vultures. These are not simple pictures. They are a complex symbolic language, a Stone Age storybook depicting the creatures that shared their environment, perhaps representing different clans or spiritual forces. This demonstrates a capacity for abstract thought and symbolic communication far earlier than anyone suspected. The layout of the enclosures adds another layer of mystery. The rings of pillars are not randomly placed. Some researchers propose that the central pillars in each enclosure are aligned with the star Sirius, or that the structures as a whole track the movements of the constellation Cygnus. This suggests that the very first stirrings of astronomical observation, the roots of that science, were deeply intertwined with ritual and belief. Why would hunter-gatherers invest such immense effort in a building project? The most profound clue is that Göbekli Tepe was not abandoned to decay. It was deliberately and carefully buried around 8000 BC, filled in with earth and stone debris, an act that preserved its carvings in near-perfect condition for millennia. This was not an act of destruction, but one of preservation, a ritual entombment of a sacred space. What prompted this final act? Did their beliefs change? Was the site, after centuries of use, considered too powerful to leave open? This intentional burial hints at a world view where the structures were living entities, possessing a power that required a proper and respectful end. Göbekli Tepe forces a radical rethink of our past. It implies that the human drive to build monuments, to encode knowledge in stone, and to align our structures with the heavens may not have sprung from practical needs like storing grain or defending a city. Instead, it may have been born from a deeper, more primal source, the need to gather, to tell stories, and to create a permanent home for the gods. The first science may not have been agriculture or engineering, but the science of the spirit, a knowledge so vital it could move mountains long before it could plant a single seed. Easter Island stands alone in a vast ocean, a speck of land where Polynesian settlers performed one of history's most audacious acts of sculpture. Here, separated from the rest of the world by thousands of miles of empty sea, a society with incredibly limited resources chose to carve and erect the Moai, colossal stone giants that stare inland from their coastal platforms. Their creation was a masterclass in innovation born from isolation. Using nothing but hand-held picks made of hard basalt, they quarried the figures from the soft volcanic tuff of the Ronoroku crater. Each statue was born from the living rock, its form gradually emerging under a relentless rain of precise, patient blows. But the true mystery begins the moment a Moai was freed from the quarry wall. How did they move these multi-ton figures for miles across rolling terrain without the wheel, without large animals, and with very few trees? The answer may be as dynamic as the statues themselves. Compelling theories, supported by oral tradition and modern experiment, suggest the Moai were not dragged horizontally. Instead, they were walked. teams of workers used a system of ropes to rock the statue from side to side, edging it forward with a rhythmic, swaying gait. Each controlled tilt, each small pivot on its rounded base, made the stone giant appear to march across the landscape under its own power. This method demanded a profound, intuitive grasp of leverage and balance, a physics of motion passed down through generations. Once at the ceremonial platform, or ahu, the final engineering challenge awaited. Raising a moai onto its stone pedestal was a delicate operation. The builders carefully constructed great earthen ramps, dragging the statue up backwards until it could be pivoted into its final, upright position. Then came the most critical addition, the pukao. These massive, cylindrical top-knots of red scoria stone were balanced precariously on the heads of the moai. The method for placing them remains one of the island's greatest puzzles, a feat that required an almost supernatural understanding of center of gravity and counterweight to prevent a catastrophic topple. Yet this incredible story of stone mastery is shadowed by a stark lesson in sustainability. The very society that achieved these wonders eventually collapsed. The same obsession that drove them to move mountains of rock also consumed the island's fragile ecosystem. Forests were cleared for rollers and ropes for sledges and levers until the land was barren. Without wood, they could no longer build the fishing boats essential for survival. The culture that had mastered balance in stone ultimately lost its balance with the environment. The knowledge of how to erect the moai faded, leaving behind silent sentinels and a haunting question. What does it mean when a civilization's greatest achievement contains the seeds of its own undoing? The moai stand as a powerful monument to human ingenuity, but also to its limits, a poignant echo of forgotten sciences that pushes our search for answers to a new frontier beneath the waves. Our story of stone now plunges beneath the waves, where the ocean guards its most profound secrets. Off the coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island, the seabed drops away to reveal a breathtaking sight, a massive, tiered structure of monolithic sandstone blocks. The Yonaguni monument rises from the deep like a sunken ziggurat, its sharp, geometric forms standing in stark contrast to the rolling, natural seabed around it. We see what look like vast, flat terraces connected by near-vertical walls that meet at crisp 90-degree angles. There are straight, narrow channels that resemble roadways, and two colossal pillars that appear positioned to hold up a ceiling that has long since vanished. The sheer regularity of the shapes, the parallel lines and perfect corners, screams of intelligent design, yet a fierce debate has raged since its discovery. Geologists argue these could be the result of rare and powerful natural forces, the sandstone fracturing along its natural plains and then being shaped by relentless ocean currents over millennia. The truth may lie somewhere in between, a natural rock formation that was recognized, enhanced, and ritualized by ancient human hands. If even partly artificial, its implications are staggering. This structure now sits nearly 80 feet below the surface, meaning it was built on dry land, thousands of years ago when sea levels were dramatically lower. The builders would have been working with a clear and present danger, the knowledge that the ocean was slowly, inexorably reclaiming their land. They were not just building for their own time, they were constructing monuments in a race against a changing climate, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of their coastal environment and its long-term cycles. Yonaguni is not alone. In the Gulf of Combat off the coast of India, sonar scans have revealed the outlines of vast geometric structures and what seem to be the foundations of an entire city, submerged when glacial melt flooded the continental shelves. In the Mediterranean, off the coasts of Greece and Egypt, more sunken ruins hint at bustling coastal settlements that are now underwater archaeological parks. These sites collectively paint a picture of a lost chapter in human history, a time when megalithic cultures were not just terrestrial, but maritime. They possessed the skills to navigate, to build along shorelines, and to adapt their monumental science to the edge of the world. How many more of these coastal civilizations were swallowed by the rising tides, their stories silenced beneath the sediment? These underwater worlds force us to expand our definition of megalithic science to include shipbuilding, tidal knowledge, and a desperate, ingenious adaptation to a planet in flux. They challenge the very map of our ancient past, suggesting that the cradle of civilization may not have been just in river valleys, but on coastlines that now lie at the bottom of the sea. The chisel marks we find may only tell part of the story. Beyond the physical tools of hammer and wedge lies a tantalizing realm of possibility, where the line between ancient legend and lost technology begins to blur. Could the builders have possessed knowledge of forces we are only beginning to understand? Legends from Tibet speak of monks using specific frequencies of sound to levitate massive stones into place, a concept that resonates with the acoustic properties we now measure in their chambers. Elsewhere, theories suggest the use of chemical compounds derived from local plants, a secret slurry that could temporarily soften granite, allowing it to be molded like clay before hardening back to its diamond-like strength. The sheer perfection of the granite boxes in the Serapeum of Saqqara, Egypt, with their mirror-smooth surfaces and corners sharp enough to cut, seems to defy the capabilities of simple copper tools and abrasive sand. The precision is so exact, the internal corners so perfectly square, that it evokes the work of a modern milling machine. How could such a thing be achieved? Some researchers point to the potential use of advanced optics, perhaps large crystal lenses that focused sunlight into a beam of intense heat capable of slicing through stone with a clean, fused edge. Others wonder if they mastered the Earth's own magnetic field, using lodestones to align their monuments with an accuracy that a simple plumb bob could not guarantee. The speculative nature of these ideas is undeniable, yet they spring from a very real and observable puzzle. When known methods strain to explain the evidence, our minds naturally reach for other possibilities. Perhaps they harnessed geothermal vents to create sustained heat for thermal shock on an industrial scale. Maybe they understood a principle of physics we have yet to rediscover, a way to temporarily negate weight or reduce friction to near zero. While we may never find an ancient power tool buried in the sand, exploring these theories is not an exercise in fantasy. It is a crucial act of intellectual humility. It reminds us that the past is not a closed book, but a landscape still rich with undiscovered secrets. Our assumptions about the limits of ancient science may be the very thing blinding us to their true genius. This open-minded questioning naturally propels us forward, out of the realm of pure theory and into the tangible world of modern experiments, where researchers are now trying to rebuild the past with their own hands. A team of modern volunteers strains against thick ropes, their muscles taut as they coax a concrete replica of a 10-ton stone slab forward. This is not a scene from a movie, but a serious scientific endeavor, the field of experimental archaeology in action. Researchers are not just studying ancient sites, they are physically rebuilding the methods, using only the tools and materials that would have been available thousands of years ago. In the famous Stonehenge experiment, volunteers demonstrated that a group of around 150 people could pull a massive sarsen stone on a sleigh, gliding it over a track of greased wooden rails. The rhythmic chant of the team replaced the roar of an engine, proving that coordinated human effort was a viable and powerful machine. In other quarries, teams have successfully split granite by first building a roaring fire against the rock face and then dousing the superheated stone with cold water. The sharp crack of the thermal shock is a sound the ancient builders would have known intimately, a signal that the mountain was yielding to their understanding of physics. Once a block is freed, the shaping begins with replica stone hammers and copper chisels. The process is agonizingly slow, a relentless percussion that gradually wears the stone into shape, covering the workers in a fine, gritty dust. These experiments do more than just prove something was possible. They reveal the true cost in time and labor. They quantify the immense skill required to strike the same spot thousands of times without shattering the stone, or to coordinate a pull team with perfect synchrony to prevent the load from bogging down. What these reconstructions teach us most profoundly is the human factor, the irreplaceable role of practiced communal skill. This was not a science of solitary genius, but of shared, embodied knowledge. The hands-on work also highlights puzzling gaps. While we can move and shape the stones, achieving the mirror-smooth finishes and optically perfect surfaces found on some Egyptian granite boxes remains just beyond our grasp with the replica tools we use. This suggests there may be nuances we have yet to rediscover, a lost step in the polishing process or a specific technique that has left no trace in the archaeological record. The bridge between past and present, built by these experiments, is now being reinforced with silicon and light. The same practical intelligence that guided a stonemason's hammer is today being channeled through the precise calculations of digital technology. A laser scanner sweeps silently across the ancient stones, capturing every contour and crack in a cloud of digital points. This is the new frontier of archaeology, where entire sites are being preserved not just in photographs, but in perfect three-dimensional virtual worlds. Through technologies like LiDAR, which uses laser pulses to map surfaces with millimeter accuracy, and photogrammetry, which stitches thousands of photographs into a single detailed model, we can now explore these monuments in ways that were once unimaginable. We can fly through a digital twin of Stonehenge, examining the tool marks on the underside of a lintel without ever setting foot on the sacred turf. We can analyze the subtle wear patterns on a stone floor in Machu Picchu, revealing the paths of countless pilgrims, and we can run structural stress tests on virtual walls to understand precisely how they withstand earthquakes. These digital models have become a kind of time machine, allowing us to deconstruct and reconstruct the past without causing a single gram of erosion. At Machu Picchu, detailed scans have exposed a hidden masterpiece of hydraulic engineering, a network of finely carved channels that managed water flow and drainage with elegance, while also revealing how the trapezoidal shapes of doors and windows were a deliberate, genius adaptation to dissipate seismic force. We can now test long-held theories with digital precision. How many workers would it truly take to pull a 20-ton block up a greased ramp? A simulation can calculate the optimal angle, factoring in the friction of the sled and the pulling capacity of a human team, turning speculation into quantifiable data. This digital lens is also sharpening our view of the heavens. By modeling the sightlines from lesser-known stone circles, researchers have identified alignments with specific stars that are invisible to the naked eye during a simple site visit, alignments that only become apparent when the entire landscape is factored into the celestial equation. How is this reshaping our interpretation? It is democratizing discovery, allowing a researcher on another continent to make a profound observation from their desktop. It underscores that these were not isolated structures, but deeply integrated components of their environment, designed with a holistic understanding of geology, weather, and the cosmos. This non-invasive scrutiny emphasizes our urgent, modern responsibility. As these digital archives grow, they become a permanent record, a backup copy of human heritage against the ravages of time, war, and climate change. They ensure that even if the physical stones should ever fall, the precise blueprint of their genius will remain, forever waiting for the next curious mind to unlock its secrets. The silent stones become a battleground of ideas where every chisel mark is a piece of disputed evidence. At the heart of this debate lies a fundamental question. Did the global impulse to build with stone spread from a single, advanced source, or did it ignite independently in the minds of people separated by oceans? The diffusionist theory suggests a forgotten seafaring culture carried this architectural blueprint across the world. Yet, how could this knowledge traverse such vast distances without leaving a clear trail of contact in the archaeological record? The opposing view, known as independent invention, argues that humanity reached a similar technological and spiritual tipping point in different locations. When a society masters its environment and seeks permanence, perhaps the most logical and powerful expression is to build in stone, aligning with the universal constants of the sun and stars. This is not a dry academic dispute. It strikes at the core of how we view human creativity and connection. The radical redating of Göbekli Tepe fuels this fire, proving that hunter-gatherers were capable of monumental works long before we believed possible, forcing a complete rewrite of our social and technological timeline. This single site challenges the very definition of civilization, suggesting that the temple may have predated the town. Such a profound shift inevitably opens the door for more speculative theories. Some look at the impossible precision of certain stonework and propose the involvement of a lost, advanced civilization whose tools and techniques vanished without a trace. Others, observing the sheer scale and celestial alignment, point to extraterrestrial guidance. While mainstream science finds no tangible evidence for these ideas, their persistence reveals something crucial about our relationship with these sites. They are so magnificent, so baffling, that they seem to demand an explanation beyond ordinary human capability. Why does our own history feel so alien to us? The debate extends to the very purpose of the stones. Were the astronomical alignments a precise agricultural calendar, a way to mark the seasons for survival? Or were they a spiritual technology designed to connect the human soul with the cosmic order? The most compelling answer is that they were never an either-or choice. For the people who built them, the practical and the sacred were woven from the same thread. Distinguishing between a functioning observatory and a cathedral is a modern dilemma, one that their world you may never have recognized. These controversies are not a sign of scientific failure. They are a testament to the power of these monuments to provoke wonder and challenge our assumptions. They highlight the inherent limitations of archaeology, where we must reconstruct entire belief systems from silent, enduring rock. Our interpretations are shaped by our own time, our own biases, and the frustrating gaps in the evidence. Embracing these debates does not weaken our understanding, it enriches it. It reminds us that history is not a single, settled story, but a dynamic conversation across millennia. The puzzle is still missing pieces, and it is our responsibility to protect the fragments we have, ensuring the stones can continue to speak to the generations who will follow us. The rain that has fallen for millennia now carries a new threat, its gentle acidity slowly dissolving ancient carvings. The footsteps of millions of admirers, each one light, collectively compact the earth and destabilize foundations that have stood for thousands of years. These stones have survived ice ages and the rise and fall of empires, yet they now face their most unpredictable challenge, the modern world. Preservation is a race against invisible clocks, where the enemy is not a single cataclysm, but the slow, steady pressure of our own curiosity and a changing climate. At sites like Stonehenge, the solution has been to create controlled visitor paths and viewing platforms. a necessary step that physically separates us from the monument to ensure its long-term survival. This is the core dilemma of modern stewardship, balancing public access with absolute protection. How do we share a treasure without loving it to death? This ethical conversation extends far beyond physical wear and tear. It reaches into museum vaults and sacred lands, questioning who truly holds the right to tell the stories of these stones. For many indigenous communities, these are not abandoned ruins for scientific dissection. They are living ancestors, active places of worship and cultural memory. The debate over excavating Native American burial mounds is a profound example, where an archaeologist might see a data-rich site. A tribal nation sees a sacred resting place that must not be disturbed. The movement to repatriate human remains and artifacts, to return them to their descendant communities, is a vital correction to a colonial past, acknowledging that scientific inquiry does not override spiritual sovereignty. This forces a larger question whose knowledge counts: the wisdom of local and indigenous peoples, passed down through oral traditions, is increasingly recognized as a crucial layer of understanding, a guide to the purpose of a site that no carbon date can ever provide. International organizations now work tirelessly to document these sites before they fade. Teams use three-dimensional laser scanning to create perfect digital twins of megaliths, archiving every crack and carving in virtual worlds. These digital archives are more than just backups. They are a promise to the future, ensuring that even if a stone falls, its precise form and placement will never be lost. Yet the threats are evolving faster than our solutions. Climate change brings more intense storms and rising sea levels that erode coastal sites, while urban expansion paves over forgotten monuments in the name of progress. The work of conservation is a collaboration, a partnership that must include archaeologists, engineers, local communities, and governments. It requires listening as much as it does laser scanning. Our responsibility is to act as guardians, not just spectators, ensuring these silent teachers of a lost science can continue to challenge and inspire the generations who have yet to walk between their towering forms. The same principles that stabilized Inca walls against earthquakes now shape the design of modern skyscrapers in seismic zones. Contemporary architects are looking back to these ancient structures, not for their mystery, but for their proven engineering solutions. The intricate, mortarless polygonal walls of Machu Picchu, which shift and resettle during tremors, have inspired new systems of base isolation and flexible joints in buildings from Tokyo to San Francisco. This is not mere imitation, it is the rediscovery of a profound wisdom where form and function were inseparable. Our modern pursuit of sustainable building echoes this ancient logic. The passive solar alignment of a 5,000-year-old tomb, designed to capture the low winter sun, is the direct ancestor of today's green architecture, where buildings are oriented to maximize natural light and heat, drastically reducing their energy needs. This thoughtful use of environmental forces extends to material choice. Just as ancient builders used the local granite of Aswan or the limestone of Giza, cutting transport costs and blending structures into the landscape, modern sustainable design champions locally sourced materials to minimize carbon footprints and create a sense of place. Even our continued fascination with celestial alignment finds modern expression, though sometimes in controversial forms. The now damaged Georgia guidestones, with their precise astronomical orientations and multilingual messages, served as a modern megalith, demonstrating that the urge to encode knowledge in stone and align it with the cosmos never truly left us. What these parallels reveal is a simple, powerful truth. The ancient builders were master problem solvers, confronting challenges of durability, sustainability, and meaning that we still grapple with today. Their greatest lesson may be their long-term perspective. They built for millennia, not for decades, using materials and designs proven by the Earth itself. How would our own cities change if we planned with that same generational responsibility? Their legacy invites us to merge timeless wisdom with modern innovation, creating a built environment that is not just efficient, but enduringly harmonious. A 5,000-year-old stone wall stands unshaken by earthquakes, a silent lesson in physics we are only now relearning. As we piece together the fragments of this lost megalithic science, the story that emerges is not one of alien intervention or magic, but of profound human brilliance. It is a story that transcends time, connecting the mind of an Inca stonemason who fitted polygonal blocks without mortar to the mind of a modern engineer designing a shock-absorbent skyscraper. We have journeyed from the quarries where fire and water coaxed mountains into blocks to the celestial alignments that turned Stonehenge into a cosmic clock. We have seen how geology, astronomy, acoustic engineering, and social organization converge to create monuments meant to outlast empires. This was a holistic science, one that saw no separation between the precision of a perfect joint and the sacred rhythm of the solstice sunrise. Their world was not divided into disciplines but was experienced as a single, interconnected reality. Our modern science, with its laser scanners and digital models, is only now catching up, rediscovering the secrets they encoded in stone. This journey invites us to look at the ancient past not as a primitive prelude, but as a repository of timeless wisdom. It challenges us to protect these sites not as mere ruins, but as active classrooms, as testaments to our shared human heritage and our capacity for collective wonder. What might our own world learn from their long-term perspective, from their ability to build in harmony with the earth rather than dominate it? The stones still have stories to tell, but they need guardians. I would love to hear which of these mysteries resonated most with you. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you want to continue exploring history's greatest puzzles with us, be sure to subscribe. The next lost science is waiting